Welcome back to Let's Not Sugarcoat It. Season 3 is here and we're excited to dive into the core of communication, relationships, and leadership.
We're your hosts, Bella and Lee, a husband and wife duo with a successful business helping couples and organizations get it together to play a bigger game and elevate their relationships and performance.
We believe in keeping it real, so each week we'll bring you incredible guests, entrepreneurs sharing their authentic experiences, along with episodes featuring just the two of us tackling the tough topics.
So, if you're ready to enhance your connections and sharpen your leadership skills, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Let's Not Sugarcoat It podcast. And today we've got Jeff Swan joining us again, actually.
Round two.
So Jeff Swan is a sales innovator and founder of SOS Signals, a platform designed to help enterprise and B2G sales teams stop wasting time chasing ghost deals and start closing with confidence. With over $255 million in influenced pipeline across 75 plus revenue organizations, Jeff has worked as a fractional CRO, consultant, and founder, helping teams transform the way they sell. So welcome, Jeff.
Thanks for having me again, Lee.
Yeah, this is round two, only just because we had a bit of a glitch the last time. And but this is the way things work, right? And whether you're running a podcast or a business, I mean, things sometimes don't work the way that they're supposed to, and you just got to pivot and do it again. So I appreciate you making time to come back and do this again with us.
Of course.
So you work a lot in the IT software kind of space, and so I imagine you've experienced your fair share of
more
not working.
More than my fair share. In fact, I'm telling you earlier that even me recording my videos daily, I got all this new equipment and my computer can't handle it. So I have to rebuild my computer now just to be able to handle all the great equipment I got. So I'm used to it, recording 5 videos in a row and finding out didn't have audio. It happens. So I'm happy to do a redo and share some insight with your audience.
Yeah. Well, maybe to get started, tell us a little bit about your journey into where you are now with being a founder of SOS Signals.
Yeah. So I didn't always start with the idea of being a business owner. In fact, I remember in university, one of my colleagues, he was taking the business. I went to Asper School of Business in Manitoba, and he was telling me that he was, he only wanted to start a business. And I thought he was crazy because that wasn't what it was like back in Winnipeg. Everybody wanted to get that great job. I was expecting to make a ton of money right out of school, and I was going for a job, and he was going for a business. It's just so funny that, like, if you look now, this is 20 years later since I graduated. I'm running a business and he's an employee. But it's kind of funny because that journey, it happens over time. It's like, I had several different kind of turning points in my career where I had some of the best jobs out of university, some great, mentors. I worked for some of the top companies in the world, like all this stuff. And then I kind of got this, for some reason, I got this entrepreneur bug. So when I was living in Winnipeg, way back, I got this call to go work on a beach in Miami, and so I was working on a laptop running a tech company, and that tech company took me to Vancouver because that's where all the great staff was. And I loved that, and I got the bite for this life, So by the time I lived in Vancouver, I started really digging deep into that, and networking, hosting workshops, and on internet marketing. That was a thing at the time. Right. And it just I just lit up, like my whole soul lit up, and it was hard. Some months you're making no money. Some months you're making $30,000-$40,000. It's up and down, but it's that rush of just going out there and solving problems for people that they want to pay for, So, along the way, I ended up just talking to so many companies where, I was selling marketing RevOps services. Okay. So technology, web design, CRMs, all this other stuff. And I'd always been building tech for revenue teams. And every single person that I talked to kept having the same problem. How do I book more meetings? How do I book more meetings? And how do I run an SDR team, sales development representative? And nobody knew how to do it right. So it ended up taking me into coaching, which is Outbound SOS, which is the company I have now. This was in 2021. And I since coached thousands of people around the world. I've had clients in Egypt, in London, and France, and Russia, like all this stuff. And the cool thing is that it's just evolved so much, and it kind of brought me to where I am today, where I've recognized that just doing outbound isn't enough. I used to tell people just, it's a numbers game, do all the activities and go crazy, and you will get results just from doing the activities, right? And while there is still some truth to that, doing the work gets the results. You have to be a lot more intelligent now. As you see with the advent of AI, people are very easily at their fingertips. They have all this access to what they call personalization and all that stuff. And I just don't believe that is the challenge. I don't believe that is really the solution to getting more meetings, because all it's causing is AI bloat. Right? AI slop, I think you said before.
Yeah.
And so now what we're doing is a very innovative approach to leveraging AI and human touch to actually do deep research on clients, so that not only do you have a personalized message, but you actually have a personal, like a more partner-driven approach, and more like, us as buddies talking to each other. I understand what's going on. I can anticipate the challenges and then come at it with a real way to actually help somebody. The underlying thing behind that is not to think of it as a vendor. I'm trying to get customers.
Yeah.
It's how can I help the people that I know I can help today?
Right.
And you take that approach, that mindset, and then really, really dig deep. And it's amazing the types of meetings that you get from that.
Yeah, I bet. So it sounds like you're also on a journey of not just getting any client. It's also about, now that you have this vision, that you have kind of this new path, that there's also a certain type of clientele that you want to be working with as well.
100%. And I'm stringent with this now. I've actually turned down clients. I don't even have a full client roster right now, because it's a brand new service I launched about a month ago.
Yeah.
But I've been turning down clients because they don't fit what I want to produce. I want people who are ethical in how they do things. They have realistic expectations of the amount of work you have to do just to be successful. I even have on my website, I have a big X that says no, set it and forget it. No high volume. I don't want people to use this as a trick, because it is an unfair advantage. It's something that, let's put it this way. I did send 2 emails to one client last week, or 2 Fridays ago, had a meeting with him Tuesday. I'm signing with him today. It's because I was very deliberate, very thoughtful in how I reached out to him. I knew that his company was stable, long-term, on a slight growth path, but I know I can help them get there faster with SOS Signals, which is the product. And they have the right mindset, just so happens this one was in the M&A space, where, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but M&A groups, they come together and they buy companies within a category, and then they install a general manager as opposed to a CEO. Right. And that general manager's job is to make it more efficient, run better, really build that brand up. Right. So I knew I had somebody with the mindset that I have. And so when I talked to him, it felt like I was talking to you. It felt like I was talking to somebody that I know, that I understand. Yeah. Because I did my research, and he actually really cared what we were saying. And so it was just one of those things that just kind of came together. Right. And so I'm looking for clients like that. I'm looking for people who understand growth isn't just this hockey stick. Right. It's these little building blocks every single day you have to do to build the wall, build the whatever you're doing. Right. Right.
I'm really interested in your, I guess, kind of like your filtering process, as far as how you go about choosing which clients that you want to work with versus the ones that you exclude, the ones that you say, I'm not working with them. But first, I'm even more curious about what is that, I guess, communication that you have with yourself. What's that internal tension like when it comes to that you have this, let's say, unfair advantage, because you're saying it's an unfair advantage to for other companies. Yeah. which really makes it an unfair advantage for you in a way when it comes to other businesses that are working in the same kind of industry, providing the similar types of services.
Yeah.
So I think it would be easy for most people to want to leverage this as much as they can, to blow up as much as to grow as fast as they can, to really just, beat all their competition, make as much money as possible, become I think everybody looks at building businesses sometimes as a pathway to becoming multimillionaire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like it would be I don't want to say very difficult, but, I think you need to have some type of foundation, I think, some type of regular conversation with yourself to make sure that you're not chasing the dollar, that you have a different type of focus.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I know that, I've worked with over 75 businesses. I've started 5 of my own. I've failed on 2 of those 5, and I know that this is a long road. This isn't a quick thing. Like I used to say, I'm going to be making 100 G's in a month in 3 months, like I used to actually think that. And having gone through it with other companies, with my own, I recognize that I have to be as realistic as possible and put in more work than I think I need to, and just keep going farther and farther. And in that internal struggle is backed by decades, like 2 decades of things that worked, things that didn't, people whose style worked and whose style didn't, people who I mesh with and I don't. And I find that I try to look for people who I would go and spend a night with, I might go on a trip with and have great conversations the whole time, like where they're just aligned. What they're expecting is what I'm giving, and then I'll delight them with more, but they're aligned in the way they think about business. So you and I talked last week about Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits, right?
Yeah.
And those habits are universal. This book is 30 years old, maybe older, right? Like, and it's just, when you think of things like being proactive and beginning with the end in mind, like these are really, really important things to think about. And when you have people who just sat on a gold mine, they just happen to find that one product or one solution that just everybody wants, and like they just grow viral like crazy, and it's amazing. But then people try to emulate that, even though it's not built on a foundation of development. There's a thing I learned in university was growth versus development. Growth is the hockey stick. Development is building those building blocks I mentioned earlier. And so I always have this as like, I'm critical with myself when I'm talking to somebody. Is this my type of person? Is this that person? I can go and sit around a campfire and, just talk for hours on business and what they're trying to do and their vision. Do I believe in their vision? Do I believe they can execute on it? Just because they have a lot of money from investors or whatever else, it doesn't mean that, the general public is going to love them, right? Some people have really switched on friends, that can buy their service because they're friends and they trust them and all that stuff. It doesn't mean they can go out and get the next 5 customers that aren't their friends. Right. So I always think about that. And I look at it I also do investing, right? So I look at it from, would I be an investor of this company? Would I sit on their board? Would I be an advisor? Would I accept a position if they ask me? And if that's a no, I'm sorry, I'm not interested.
Right.
I don't need your dollars. I'm good. I think that I need you to succeed. And I have this incredible list of reasons why people don't succeed. And I just wait. And over the years, I see them fail. I predict it. And I'm like, that's why I fired that client. And I'm sorry to say, it sounds brutal, but it's the truth. It's just like, a lot of my mentors growing up was slow to hire, quick to fire. It's the same thing with your clients, take them on quietly, take them on deliberately and slowly. And then once you get them, you keep them, lock them down.
Well, I think when you're in that business mentality, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're running, a business, you're in your serious position, there is a lot of creativity that you have to bring to the table. And when you are investing that creativity into a team or into a client that is resisting it, I think that becomes a draw on energy versus it, feeding into your energy. When you're working with individuals that are really, whether they take your ideas, whether they take your coaching, whether they take your service and they really leverage it, or they take it and they make it better for themselves, that feeds back into your creativity. So that makes sense that you would fire certain clients that just aren't, aligned with your core values, ethics, or even just not doing the work. Right.
Yeah.
I feel like that is actually a pretty important part of a culture that you would want to build in your organization, whether you want to be a small, nimble company of, 5, 10, 15 people, or you want to have hundreds or thousands of employees. If you're building a foundation where these are the types of companies we work with, you're going to attract certain type of people that want to work for an organization, want to work for you, because they're like, oh, this company really aligns with my own ethics, my own core values. Yeah. And so I think that's pretty cool. I want to take us back though. You were saying that you wanted to start off just working for someone else.
Yes.
And not be in the entrepreneurial space. And so you talk about marketing and your journey almost as if you always knew that this is what you wanted to do. But I'm curious, is it something that you always knew that you wanted to do, where you just had that clarity very early on what your passion and purpose was? Or did you go through some, trial and error? Like, how did you figure that out?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, like I did find my way into marketing very naturally. Tried to go for art. Art turned into advertising art, which was graphic design. Looked into being a graphic designer. I'm sorry to say it, but how little they made. And it went, not interested anymore. But then what can I do next? And so I went into marketing. And ever since I went into marketing, took every course in school, and everybody else was doing double majors, I just said, oh, give me all of it.
Yeah.
And I just, and the funny thing is, as I was going through school, even though in my mind, I knew I wanted to get a job, the reason I wanted to get a job is I wanted someone else to pay my education in business.
Gotcha.
So I was really interested in being a C-suite executive. Right. So I did tackle that. I went after it. I became a VP before I was 30, and it was exactly what I wanted to do. And then it gave me enough business experience at someone else's expenses. I got some assets and I was able to, have an expense account, which was fun. But those types of things taught me so much about business and put me in so many rooms that I wouldn't have been in if I had done it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, that's why I was able to work with, 75 plus clients, because I was able to be in the room,
right?
Presenting to the boards, having those side conversations with board members that are worried about the state of the company and what we're going to do and what are you going to do specifically, Jeff, like that kind of thing. And it taught me so much. It introduced me to investor groups who those are my peers. When I was running my M&A firm a couple of years ago, those are my peers. These are guys I did deals with. So now I'm kind of like on both sides. I've been in the company, or I guess all sides. I've been in the company. I've been in the boardroom. I've been in the investor table, and now I'm a partner. So, and now I'm going into becoming my own actual business. So I hope that answered.
Yeah. and how do you make that transition when you are at that level?
Mm-hmm.
You've got a certain amount of success behind you, right? You just said that you were, achieved a VP status at a very young age.
Yeah.
I'm assuming in an industry, I don't work in marketing, so I'm assuming in an industry that can be pretty, cutthroat, up and down, right? Very dynamic.
Yeah.
Not only is it probably hard to walk away from that feeling of success to start over again, but it also feeds, your ego, right? It definitely feeds into a certain bit of identity, right? Where you are successful.
Yeah.
And then you also mentioned that you've had a couple businesses that flopped, that didn't work.
Yeah.
And so I'm imagining that that's probably after that VP journey, or was that before?
It was in the middle.
Isn't it in the middle? Okay. So tell us about kind of this this transition, because I think that's hard for everybody, right? There's people out there that have, they have their dreams, whether it's in business, starting their own business, buying a business, or maybe they just got dreams of not working in 9 to 5. They want to travel more. They want to have more flexibility, whatever it is.
Yep.
But you feel stuck. You feel tied down. You feel like, well, this is who I've become.
Yep.
This is how I've had certain successes in my life, whatever that means for you. And to try something different risks now failure. I mean, the funny thing is staying on the same road, there's just as much risk to failure as there is if you change it, right? But that's not how our mind operates. Our mind operates by focusing on what's predictable and certain. And so if I continue doing what I'm doing now, even if it's not chasing my dreams, it feels comfortable, it feels safe. So how did you go about making that, shift, whether it was a leap or a slow transition? How did you go about doing that?
Well, let's start with a quote from one of my mentors. My first full-time job out of university was working at an auto group in Winnipeg. And one of my mentors there said, guys, I was negotiating with 3 of the groups that wanted me to be in their team. I was negotiating salaries across this 3 of them. And the head of BMW said to me, he says, Jeff, realize if you go commission, you'll always have a job. You might not always make the same money, but you'll always have a job because you're getting paid on commission. When you get a salary, you become a liability that you have to be producing. The company has to be producing. And if not, you lose your job. And I heard it. I didn't feel it. And then I went into countless tech companies as either a full-time employee or a contractor, where I saw them, boom, they'd raise a bunch of money. They'd build so fast. They'd hire all these people. Months later, they lay off half of them. And I had this happen too many times for me to actually believe the lie that the salary is secure. It taught me through all of these things. And every time I got my contract dissolved or whatever, because of this boom and bust process, I was crushing it. Personally, I was at least an average over about 20% over my targets. And my targets were aggressive. So it wasn't a performance issue. I recognized that I can slay it. And I'm in revenue. I drive the backbone of the company. But if the company is not built with a solid foundation underneath, it doesn't matter how many leads I get them, how many opportunities, how much revenue my programs generate, is that if they can't run it, it's not going to be successful. So I'll take a sidetrack on a story with one of those companies, is that they hired me because I have an expertise of getting foreign companies into the States. So in general. And so they hired me specifically to build their US business. So I started putting all these programs together, getting US business. I did an amazing work. I think we increased revenue for marketing source revenue by 73% in 5 months. It was working. And then I found out that when they said they had the ability to do business in the States, when they actually started getting business, they realized they couldn't actually fulfill it. So it was one of those things where it did not matter how good I was. It was the old analogy of chopping trees in the forest. And, one guy just chops down as fast as he can and he just goes and he never gets out. The other guy just climbs to the top of the tree, looks, says, oh, that's the shortest way. And then he goes that way, right? It's I have to be very particular about who I do business with. And that's the same thing with everybody. Security is not real. So security is not real. And once you understand that, it's so much easier to take entrepreneurial risk. There's nothing safer than having 20 clients. There's nothing less safe than having 1 client. And when you're an employee on a T4, you have 1 client, right? And that client has to be successful your entire time there for you to keep that job. Doesn't matter how good you do, the company could fold.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great perspective, because not only are you framing it in a way, I think, very nicely, that it's that's your 1 client is your employer. That almost assumes that you have some type of control over how happy your client is right? Because in a business mindset, even if you are your own business and you have one client, at least you have some control. I mean, I've had clients where we pitch them something, give them a proposal that they were really excited about, but then when it came down to numbers, they weren't excited, and so that contract, didn't go through. However, because they're not my employer, where it's like, oh, we just, kind of fired you before we even hired you, I'm able to go back and say, okay, if that didn't work for you, right? What's the biggest pain point? Okay, well, let's take a look and figure out what does work, and then adjust the proposal so that the money makes sense. They still get some value. And then all of a sudden we're back on track and we're working and providing value for this client. When you're an employee, you have no control over what your employer, how well they are doing for other clients, right? Maybe if you are part of a startup type of company, maybe you've got a little bit more influence there. But if you're part of a big organization, I think there's even more risk there when you're part of bigger organizations, to be in that position where all of a sudden you're being laid off because you don't have that direct control over revenue stream, how money's spent, right? That fiscal responsibility. So I do like that approach.
Yeah, and it goes into the dynamics of we were talking before about running my own business versus being just like a freelancer or something like that, right? And I've always hesitated to go towards having a big staff because, like, I've had the biggest staff I've had at one point was like 430 people over 6 continents. It took so much time and so much effort, and so it took away from my sleep. I had a newborn at the time, and so it was the amount of time it took just to manage the managers. I didn't have to do the work myself because I had such a big team. So that wasn't the issue. It was the time it takes to actually give true care through people in different situations. And that's just not something, it was probably the least happy I was working in a company than when I maybe had 2 or 3 people that are contractors that I could just rely on.
Right.
And then they have other clients. They expect me to not give them 100% of their business.
Right.
So I don't feel obligated. If I don't want to take on that client because I don't feel they align with my values or we can be successful, I don't have to worry about my payroll.
Right.
I just have to worry about that. And, with laws going up all over the place, taxes, minimum wage going up and all these other things that surround it, strikes, all these other things, it's like, it seems like just a huge booby trap for having staff. And I feel like, I don't want to get philosophical, but
no, dude. Yeah.
It feels like our world is being designed nowadays to make people like us not want to hire people because it is such a pain in the butt.
Right.
And unfortunately, like, I have to look at that as, how do I live the best life and be present for my family if I have to work 16 hours a day every day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, just before we hit record, we were having a conversation around not everybody wants the same things. And I do believe that there's a lot of hype, a lot of romanticizing entrepreneurship. Yeah. Saying that it's almost like this is the path to everything that you want in life.
Yeah.
And the reality is that it's not.
No.
Right. Entrepreneurship, in order to scale and grow your business, you need to scale and grow yourself. There's a lot of things that I'm still having to push through. I got to face lots of discomforts, things that are just not natural for me, but I need to do it in order to grow the business. I need to grow, myself, my mindset, my skill set, all those things. And yet, but there are people who just, they want to go and work a 9 to 5, have their day very predictable, very static, come home and do life.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's, I think, people like yourself and myself and others that we know that just sounds a little too boring. Yeah. Right. Nothing wrong with it, but it's not kind of our thing.
Yeah.
And so how do you, I guess, balance that for yourself where, you have this drive to build something.
Mm-hmm.
You've had the big kind of experience of a bigger organization, the impacts that, which I also think is really important to have that reference, because it's not always about building a behemoth company. You need to think, also have with the end in mind, what is that right size of company for you?
Right.
Because if it's too big, then you probably need to be thinking about hiring, a CEO at some point, or getting a board of directors or something to help with something of that size.
Yeah.
But but you need to be willing to let go and step away from a lot of it to be able to manage something like that.
Yeah.
Where I think some people really love what they do so much is that they don't really want to step away. And so you need to be thinking about, how do you keep your business, either small or medium size, because you can stay small and be very profitable, have huge value, maybe even more value to your clients.
Yeah.
So how do you go about keeping that clarity for yourself in knowing the size of the business that you want? We talked about the clients that you want,
mm-hmm.
but what is the right size and why?
Well, I look at a company like, have you heard of 37 Signals?
No.
There's a tool called Basecamp.
I've heard of Basecamp. Yeah.
Basecamp. They're the team behind Basecamp.
Mm.
So they used to be a company called Basecamp and 37 Signals and whatever else. And now they're just everything is 37 Signals. I've always really admired how they work. I can't remember. There was a book that the founders wrote or whatever. And it was around that nomad lifestyle, that like entrepreneurial lifestyle that it's not. I wish I knew the name of it, but the way that they built their company is instead of just striving for constantly more, they decided they want to stay small. I think they have anywhere from 10 to 20 employees, and they've been running one of the most successful platforms in their space for like decades.
Right.
I used them in my first web design company in 2008, something like that. And what I really would like is I want to look at one metric when looking at the success of my company, and that's revenue per employee. Now, as we said, I don't necessarily want employees, but I want full-time equivalents, right? So I look at the metric is that I wouldn't want anything less than a million per employee. So if I'm taking on a person, yes.
Okay.
So if I'm taking on a person, whether that's a salary or contractor or a team of people that make up one full-timer, whichever, that has to produce $1 million in value.
Right.
So, and then just knowing my financial goals, my, my lifestyle and everything, I think where I'm going for is a $20 million company that I run with no more than 20 people.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's very clear.
Yeah.
Right. Gives you that structure and that clarity on what it is you want. And it really puts into perspective before you just go out and hire somebody.
Yes.
You're going to really figure out whether you're hiring somebody for $20 an hour or $200 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
What is that value they're going to bring?
Yes.
And I imagine that it's also not just about paying money that increases revenue, because there's going to be certain people that you would bring on, again, whether it's a direct employee or you're hiring out through a third party, is reducing some type of cost, maybe, or your time. Just thinking about that now. So how would you go about actually factoring in, what type of equation would you use where you hire somebody and what they do, okay, so it maybe increases your profit a bit, maybe increases a little bit of revenue. Let's say no increase in revenue, but there's a little bit of a profit shift, but then it's giving you some time back. So what does that get factored into that revenue calculation at all? You're getting time back?
Absolutely. Because I'm the equivalent of 3 or 4 full-time when it's my company. And any founder will probably maybe not thought about it, but they'll say the same when really pressed. Is that I'm doing 4 full-time roles at one time when I'm running. I'm doing full-time sales, full-time product development, full-time service, full-time customer support. And sure, I don't have full-time, but you know how it is with entrepreneurship. Like, it's very common that I'm working 16-hour days during the week. But I have to say, side note, I'm critical about my weekends. I do not work on the weekends at all.
That's good for you.
And I don't do any meetings on Fridays.
That's good.
Yeah. So I keep those blocks for 2 days for my family. I keep 1 day for just getting project work done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't accept any meetings on Fridays, and the rest of the week is meetings, sales calls, all this other stuff. So the way that I move my schedule around, the way I'm diligent with my thing, I can be a 4 full-time employee person. So what I would do is when I'm looking at it, let's say, for example, it's product delivery. Because as I scale, as I bring on more clients, that's the thing that is going to scale. So maybe I can work 10 accounts myself comfortably, okay, and actually delivering the service. When I start taking on 11 accounts, 12 accounts, I'm looking at, okay, now is my productivity suffering? Am I delivering less of a good experience for those first 10?
Mm-hmm.
And if so, then basically once it hits a specific number where I know I cannot go past this, I need to hire somebody, 3 clients before that, so that I can get them on board, train them, and actually allow them to get me the next 10 clients and the next 10 clients. So I know with what I'm doing, I'm going to need that full-time equivalent every 10 clients.
Right.
I've already done the math. I know what it's going to cost, and that's going to represent $1 million a year. So 10 clients, $1 million a year.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And important to note that, of course, bringing somebody on doesn't automatically equal that $1 million a year, right? It's going to be something that'll scale and transition into that. So do you also consider like a period of time? So when you bring somebody on, you've got a vision, you got a plan. Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? Do you wait a year to actually see whether that person you've brought on is actually contributing to, right? Because you mentioned earlier one of your, or many of your mentors, and I've heard others talk about this, you want to hire slow, fire fast as far as how you bring on resources into your business. So how would you approach it with that mindset of each person you're bringing into the business as a resource is equaling $1 million in revenue?
Yeah. So if you think about, you've probably heard this before from real estate investors, but they say that with real estate, you need to make money on the purchase, not the sale.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're hiring somebody for that next role, now, I read a book called The E-Myth, not that like long time ago, early on in my career, and I read it again when it republished. But the author had a great practice that I do in every one of my businesses or teams or anything, is that you create a full org chart as if this was like a 50-person company, and you create a full org chart. What are all those roles? And then you, as a founder, you're all the roles. Then you look at, like I was saying, is that if you find that one specific role starts becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, or like a cluster of roles that kind of fit in the same category, so one person could reasonably do, then what you do is you hire for that particular one, and you make sure that, like, in all honesty, if I'm doing 20 accounts myself right now, I'm losing money because I'm going to lose clients.
Oh, for sure.
Right. So if I hire that person for, let's say, 100K a year, what have you, I need to give that 100K person at least a book worth $1 million right now.
Yeah.
So if I don't have an extra $1 million worth of book for that client or for that employee, then I'm losing on that formula.
Right.
Right. But if I have enough that I could just pass that over, and let's say, for example, I have 15 clients. So I give them 10 clients and I have 5 on my own. I have half my time available now to go and acquire more clients and do more podcasts and do more webinars and do more content creation or anything, just to go out there and send out the message of what we deliver to the world, what problems we solve.
I love that. I was visualizing that as you were saying it. It's never something that I thought of before that. Yeah. When you're starting out, or, if you're already going, I think it's a great idea to build out your org chart on identify what size of business is kind of right sized for you. So how many employees would that take? And then start mapping out, or even before you decide how many employees, figure out what type of departments you need and want to have or need to have. And then figure out at what point in your scaling of your business would you hire an assistant? At what point in your business would you hire marketing? What point in your business would you hire sales? And I think a lot of that would depend on also what you love, what you're passionate about, what you're really good at. So if you're somebody that loves marketing, you might not hire out marketing right away. You're probably looking at sales. If you love sales, probably might, stay in sales a bit longer, hire out marketing sooner. But having that, again, that clarity and that structure, I can see it already, how it really gives you an understanding of that structure when you hire. So you don't hire too early, but you also don't hire too late.
Yes.
Because I think if you hire too early, that's not good, because you're bleeding cash before, and it's not giving you that value yet. And if you hire too late, then you're rushed. You're behind the 8 ball, so to speak, and you're really trying to train somebody when you've got all these clients that you need to service.
Yeah.
And so both ends, your clients are not getting the value anymore because they're not getting your time, because you also got to give it to your new employee, but then your new employee is not getting the time either. Yeah. So I really, really love that. That's a great model.
Yeah.
So these tools, I love them. These are very practical, very pragmatic. I also believe that in order for these business models to work, you need to be having kind of your own personal models and tools and exercises that you use to kind of keep you on track. I'm a big believer that in order to know what you want, whether it's build a business that's aligned with certain values, certain ethics, the things that you want out of life, the partners that you want to be working with or have in your life, you need to know who you are, right? You really need to know what it is that you want. So through this journey that you've been on, what are some of the key tools that you use today? Why do you use them? Just quickly, I'll share that I've not that long ago started a daily practice of it started off as a wants journal. So every morning getting up and just writing, I want, X, I want Y, right? And it's everything from, the type of business that I want to build. It's I wants to the type of value that I want to provide our clients. It's I wants to the type of, revenue and dollar values that I want to be coming to the business and into my life to, and traveling, right? The lifestyle that I want.
Yeah.
Then I realized that that daily practice went from I to I wants. So I carve out time every morning to do that. But then I also write I wants, and then I write, who is it that I need to be in order to get those I wants? Because I do believe that the law of attraction, manifestation, I do believe a piece of that. But you don't just write it down and then go back to your old habits, your old ways, because your current way of living, your current lifestyle is a direct result of the way you're living your life now, your habits, your mindset, everything. So if you want something different, you need to do something different. Yeah. But I write them in a present tense. Okay. So instead of I need to be, I say I am. Okay. Right? I am focused. I am, leaning into discovery. I am all these things. And then just recently, I thought it was very powerful because I felt the resistance when I thought of wanting to do it. Was like, ooh, why am I resisting this? As I went from I want and I ams to now I want, I ams, and I wills. So that I really transfer what I want, who I need to be in a present tense, and now to be that, I will do what. And it results in me writing, I will exercise daily. I will journal daily. I will be on social media. I will do all these things that it's like, when you look backwards, that's how you get to those wants.
Right.
And I knew it was going to be powerful for me because of that resistance that I felt when I thought of doing it. I was like, I don't want to, because it really felt like it was holding myself accountable now to not just, oh yeah, I journal every day and write I wants and I ams, but now I actually need to do the things that I'm saying that I will do.
Yeah.
So that's been a really powerful practice for me every day. What are some things that you use every day to focus on continuing to move forward?
Well, funny enough, I got one from my key, BMW. So, and it was like accident that I ended up calling it this, but I use a thing that is not as much of a thought exercise, but more of a practical I will. So more of like jumping right through to I will. It's what are the 3 things I'm going to do today? What are the 3 things I'm going to focus on? And that's body, mind, and wallet. So body could be, my meal plan, making sure I work out in some way, shape, or form every day. So that's body. Mind is, do I have a great conversation with friends, or do I meditate, or something that would actually expand my mind, expand my thought and my capabilities of thinking critically and in my world. And then about wallet is, what are the things I'm going to do today to build that $20 million company? What am I going to do to build my net worth? What investments are going to come in today? And so I have a practice of having to tick all 3 boxes every single day except Sunday. So I have to do it every day. So it's just a discipline thing. And I have a little board in my office that has the right on calendar or whatever. Yeah. And I just check a different color of each of them each day. Did I check all 3? Cool. That was a good day. Did I check 2 of the 3? Circle. And did I do none of them? Okay. I got to do better. And then I'm in a constant, so that's one practice that I do. Another thing that I do just consistently is I'm always asking myself, does this align? Right? Is this where I want to be? And then if I say no, why don't I want to be in this room? And then I go through the thought process. I think clearly on my own. Maybe it's driving in the car, maybe it's in the gym, what have you. But I'll think through, why did I feel that angst? Why did I feel like it's not aligned? And then I dig deep to try to find out, what was it? Was it the person I was hanging out with? Was it the project that I'm on? Was it what they're selling? Like, I've turned down clients because I didn't align with what they sold. Right. Didn't believe what they sold was good product. So I'm not going to align with them. So that's just an exercise I do, not as like a scheduled thing, but just every time I'm in a situation, I always think in my mind, am I aligned with this? Right. And it's really great work to do. And that includes not just business, but personal life as well.
Yeah. I mean, that intention and alignment is so important, right? The journaling exercise just talk about is actually exactly that. It's setting up intention on the front end. And by the end, when I'm writing down the I wills, it's ensuring alignment. Yes. That my actions, the things that I'm saying I will do, are aligned with who I need to be, and what I want, right, to achieve in my life. And so I think, intention and alignment are really 2 important mindsets. Yes. Right. Yeah. And you need to be having rituals in your life that are non-negotiable, that are aligned with what you want in your business. Because for anybody that's been in a business at a business operating level, so you're not just a individual contributor, you're responsible for teams and outcomes. Yeah. When you're at that level, when there is a vision, when there's goals set, you are having regular meetings and conversations around achieving those intentions, making sure that the business direction, the activities you're doing are still aligned with achieving those goals. And same thing in entrepreneurship. Yet in our personal lives, most people don't take that same intention and alignment seriously. We do it in business, but then when it comes to our personal lives, we are very, very kind of lax. Yeah. And so having these things, as uncomfortable as they can be sometimes, is the tipping point, is the catalyst for huge business success. Yeah. Otherwise, I think that you will, stay usually kind of just a smaller business, always struggling because you're not focused on growing yourself. You're not setting that intention to be in a more positive mindset. Yeah. How do you stay in a more positive mindset? And I say that because I genuinely don't. So I believe that there are people out there who generally are a little bit more positive mindset focused. There are definitely people out there who are more kind of in a lack mindset, right? A little bit more negative, always looking at how things can't or won't work, versus people who are more kind of geared towards being how things can work. Right. But I generally don't believe that people who are more geared towards I can never think that things are impossible, or never think that things are can't.
No.
So, how do you, with everything that you've been up to and transitioning from wanting to be an employee to being a business owner to being an employee, right? A VP to running, 5 businesses, a couple of them failed, right? Now, you're a founder, you've got big dreams and aspirations for this new venture of yours.
Yep.
How do you make sure that you are staying positive in that growth mindset without being, I guess, naive? Because there are risks. We were just talking about how sometimes the entrepreneurial journey, one mindset is that it is arguably less risky than being an employee.
Yes.
However, there is still risk.
Yep.
And if you go into a business to start, whether you buy a business or you are starting your own, especially if you're starting your own, without the right approach, without the right, scaffolding or structure, it can be more risky because working as an employee, you get paid for potential, right? Not for performance. So you get a job, you show up, and the business is paying you from day one.
Yes.
You're to get trained, to learn your job, to learn the, filing system, all that stuff. You were getting paid to learn how to perform in that business. But even at the end of the day, regardless of whether you perform at a 10 or you perform at a 1, you're still getting paid. Maybe eventually over time, if you're always performing at a 1, you'll no longer have a job, of course. But as an entrepreneur, you're getting paid for performance. And a lot of the time, especially at the beginning, performance is coming way before payment.
Yes.
And so that can make somebody really feel like this isn't working or what's going to happen. So how do you keep yourself in the right mindset to continue pushing forward, even though you sometimes have a voice on your shoulder telling you that it's not going to work?
Yeah, well, there's so many things I can say on this topic because it's something that I grapple with all the time. I remember my most successful parts of my career were, my climb up to that VP was, I'm talking my career, like before I started on my own, but like I was bulletproof. I did not feel vulnerable at all. And I had that kind of, that like mindset that seems irrational, where I just felt like anything I do could touch the gold. And I didn't look at the evidence of things that I didn't do right as anything more than just mistakes or lessons in the way. So like I just had this mentality that just made me just charge in and not care about the risks and not care about all the things. And I wasn't that rational about it. And I succeeded more than I failed. And that risk-taking mentality got me so far in my career that like I have more evidence of that working than not. The only times I ever had a rough patch was like during COVID. For some reason, I started feeling less vulnerable, or I felt more vulnerable because all of a sudden I had 3 lines of business all operating, and all 3 disappeared overnight. My retainers, everybody was trimming off contractors. My projects that were in the pipeline, people weren't spending extra on projects. And then I had a flood business, and in 1 month I had $800,000 worth of pipeline disappear because all the project budget was going towards like the COVID relief and all that. So all the budgets, because I was dealing with a lot of governments then, and all the budgets were being shifted towards COVID relief. So all at once I actually found out that, oh wait, like literally everything I'm doing is failing right now. Oof, everything. And so for 3 months, I had to reinvent myself. I had to redo the value that I brought to the world. And that's what Outbound SOS was created from, is that reinvention, is that I went, how can I make something that's bulletproof? I made something that's bulletproof, not because clients will always pay me. It's more about that I tie what I do to performance. So I make it so that just what my mentor said at BMW, if you do based on commission, you'll always have a job.
Mm-hmm.
So I can still keep 100 clients going if it's just performance. If I'm not performing, they're not paying a thing.
Right.
So I'm aligning my goals. I'm eating my own dog food. I'm aligning with what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that when I'm taking on a client, I'm assuming the risk, because if I don't succeed, it's no loss on them.
Right.
It's only loss on me. And because I know from my entire career that when I go forth and I just, give it all, give my best as if it's going to win, going to succeed, I succeed 4 to 5, 9 out of 10 times.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that, yes, I'm going to have some failures. I'm going to have some losses. I'm going to have some 0 months or low dollar months, whatever. But I know that in the end, because I'm aligned directly with my clients, I'm aligned directly with the problem that I'm solving. And my wallet is impacted by whether I do it well or not.
What does that, or what did that reinvention look like for yourself? Because I imagine, like, let's not sugarcoat it. When you are going through, a rough patch,
Mm-hmm.
off the heels of, I think one of the things you told me was that you went through a time of your life where you really felt like, man, you had the Midas touch.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like everything that you did,
Bulletproof.
right, turned into gold.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you were going through a phase where nothing's working.
Yeah.
Nothing's turning into gold anymore. You're failing left, right, and center. So you have this realization that you need to reinvent yourself. I think in the term reinventing yourself, it could be like, oh, you just, pivoted with a new business strategy or something like that. But reinventing yourself means taking a look at, your place in the world, and not just how you provide value to others, but how you, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if you're not the person with the Midas touch, then who are you?
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm curious, like, what were some of those initial conversations you had to have with yourself to work through that? Because I imagine some of them were probably tough.
They were really tough. I went to counseling. I had deep conversations learning about myself. I reread The Alchemist, what we were talking about before. I reread that. I started rereading a lot of the books that got me the mindset that I needed to be so successful for 15 years straight of success, right? And then I started looking at it and I said, okay, well, what's different now? When I was living in Vancouver, I lived there for 9 years, and I took that market by storm. Like, I took it. I went to every networking event, hosted workshops, did so many different things. Everybody knew me as a hustler. Everybody knew me as successful. If they were working a deal with me, they knew how good I was at sales and marketing and all this stuff that I push. And so my personal connections were the thing that made my career so successful, because I didn't have to go to market. The market came to me, because somebody would say, oh, you need to talk to Jeff. You need to talk to Jeff. And so, like, through everything that I'm doing, I would just have success, right? Fast forward to 2020, I'm living in Lake Country. All my entire Vancouver network is now there, not here. I've got a kid to take care of because she can't stay in daycare. Yeah, because they keep having COVID outbreaks. So shut down. Then my partner at the time, she was working from home, and her people wouldn't let her have any flexibility. Like, if she's on the clock, she has to be there with the camera on, like, all that stuff. Oh, wow. And so they wouldn't even let her take her kid for a walk in the middle of the day or something. It was just they were so rigid. Yeah. So we had all this pressure. And I'm losing all the contracts or whatever. So it was like, I looked at what was different then. It wasn't just COVID. Like, that was a huge stressor on its own, right? And I can deal with that kind of stuff. That stuff doesn't faze me. If stuff gets hard, it gets hard. Yeah. Like, I can deal with it, whatever. But, like, the fact is that I recognized that the formula that I was using to be successful then was be present, be there. I mean, you saw me speak, like, not that long ago, right? Yeah. I speak. I know how to be part of that world, and I thrive in that world. Mm-hmm. But when your clients are not local, they're not where you are, you have to reinvent how you go about sharing that personality.
Yeah.
So now I no longer look at it as where I can just go for dinner or lunch with somebody or go for drinks or coffee. And then next thing you know, I come out with a contract. I have to reach out with intention to those people that we mentioned earlier on that absolutely fit, that are aligned, that I know I can help, that I know we can have a long-term successful relationship. I qualify out people through those conversations. Is that this was my theory? I have an hypothesis. Let's say you're my target customer. I reach out to you. I have a hypothesis based on what I know that you're going to be a good client for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll test that hypothesis in our call. And instead of me selling to you, I'm qualifying you. I'm trying to understand, do you have what it takes to be successful with what I'm offering?
Yeah.
And if no, I won't tell you, hey, it's you.
Yeah.
It's you, not me.
That's right.
I will basically say, like, I don't see a path to success here.
Right.
It's not about who they are or whatever. It's more about, like, I don't see a path to success. So, and now, how do I portray my personality? My dad calls me Hollywood because of what I did.
Right.
I spoke at conferences, hosted bi-weekly webinars, hosted a weekly podcast, volunteered to help run a 100,000 person community of salespeople, marketers, and operations professionals. I ran competitions. I did daily videos, LinkedIn posts. I became what we call an influencer. I think I might have been on one of those top sales influencer lists. I can't really remember, but on LinkedIn. And I kind of portrayed myself almost as a performance as opposed to just having it come naturally.
Right.
And then what I found was through my community, because I had, thousands of really, really adamant and switched on people that were just stoked to be part of it.
Yeah.
And the competitions we run, they were really cool. What we would do is pit people head to head in a bracket challenge. So one of ours was March Madness. So I don't know if you follow NCAA at all, but we have a bracket challenge where we pit two sellers against each other. And in a 3-day period, we'd see who can book the most meetings. And then, the winner there would face the winner here, and then it would go up and up and up. We had one guy book 76 meetings in 16 days.
Oh, wow.
He was unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
And we did this competition twice in a year. And the two people that won were people that were new to sales, new to this. They just really listened. They followed and all that stuff. So through that, the connections that I made there, the people that I met, the side learnings kind of mimicked what I did in Vancouver when I was in person.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned how to do it online and be successful at it.
Right.
I learned what it takes to actually build a community and be strong. And so that all of a sudden those projects started coming my way. And so all of a sudden I've got, like, I remember in April of 2021, I think, I closed 3 $20,000 contracts in like a matter of 2 days, something like that.
That's awesome.
And I was just like, boom, I'm back.
Yeah.
Like I've reinvented how I share my value to the market.
Yeah.
And how I go after people. Now I just have to, it takes a lot more work though, I'll be honest.
Okay.
It does a lot more work, a lot more time, a lot more effort and energy. But I know that from my last time really ramping up on SOS, I've kind of reinvented that towards this SOS Signals tool. But I know from my experience before that it takes time to get kind of over the hill. And then once it gets there, it starts to become more like that natural approach that I had back when I was in Vancouver.
Right. So I hear relationships very, very important to accomplishment.
Yes.
Right. Without relationships, it's hard to get anything done, at least hard to get anything done at scale.
Yes.
Right. Scale your relationships, scale your ability to get things done, to accomplish your wants, to accomplish your why. Also communication, that foundation to relationships. And so it sounds like you found a way to be able to build that communication, right? To help build relationships. You also build community, right? Scale that for relationships. I think that's hugely important, especially right now. There is a bit of a loss in the human connection in today's world, and that human connection is so important for so many reasons. And community is very much um, it's so important, right? And not just, I used to think of community as just like, neighborhood community or just people hanging out, but it's community where you can feel, vulnerable in. And when I say vulnerability, it doesn't mean you just need a place where you show up and you can feel like, you can cry. I mean, it can be that, but vulnerability where you can feel like, I don't know what to do, but I'm part of a community that's going to support me and help me figure out what to do. Whether that's in a business mindset or in a different type of context. I think there's a lot of people out there that are trying to accomplish what you've accomplished on that community and relationship side online. What would be maybe the one thing that you could provide somebody who's struggling with that? Whether they're, an extrovert and an introvert, right? I mean, myself, I'm fine out in public space around people, but being online, there's a resistance there for me. And so, what would be one thing that you would say to somebody to help them, I don't know, mindset shift, different perspective, tool or trick that you used to, do where you're at now? Because again, I'm sure that when you started doing LinkedIn stuff and Facebook stuff and podcasting and setting up work all at the beginning, I'm sure it was, not where it's at today. It's not like you built it, you put out an invitation saying, hey, come join me here. And all of a sudden you had an overwhelming response.
Yeah.
What would be something you would tell somebody who's trying to get to where you're at? But they're at the very beginning.
Well, let's kind of take a different tack here, because right now I'm kind of at the beginning again, because I purposely took a year and a half off of LinkedIn. I posted once in a while, but never really paid any attention. I was going from getting 200 plus likes per post to now I'm lucky if I get 10. I'm at the beginning again. So even though I've been there and I've got there, when it comes to actually being an influential voice in something like LinkedIn or Instagram or what have you, is that you really have to think of like, why am I doing this? I'm doing this again, chasing the dollar. So I'm just doing this because every like is going to have a dollar amount associated with it. So I know I have to get 1 million likes and blah, blah, blah. Or are you doing it because you know that it's a great medium to help the people that you help? Am I going to make my clients more successful by posting daily videos on LinkedIn? Are the things that I'm sharing actually going to be helpful for somebody? A lot of the clients I deal with aren't the types who are going to like and comment. They're busy executives. They're busy people that they barely have the time to follow up on emails. Yeah. So I'm not going to expect them to be the same as the sales development reps that I was selling to before, right? In the first version of Outbound SOS, because they're people who are constantly on LinkedIn. They're doing their job on there. So like, of course I'm going to get 200 likes from sales development reps because they're already on there. Right. And they're tracking my stuff and they're doing all that. But like I'll have, a couple thousand impressions on a post, maybe 5 likes, but a couple thousand impressions, because the followers that I have are ones that are executives. They're looking at it in passing. I'm saying, oh, that's an interesting note. They don't feel any need to like it or comment because it doesn't add value for them. Right. And a lot of the people that I sell to directly, you look at their activity feed on LinkedIn, they have nothing. They literally have no activity. So no likes, no comments, no nothing. So I can't expect that it's going to be the same thing. So my lesson here is that you have to align it with your reality. Who are you trying to attract? What are you trying to give them? The reason for social media. It's not a vanity project. No. Right. So what are you trying to give them? What are you trying to solve for them? And just be as genuine as you possibly can. And even if you don't get the likes, you don't get the 1 million views or followers, whatever, you might have 10 followers that are just watching your stuff every day, not commenting, not anything. Next thing you know, you meet with that person in a networking event or at a trade show or something. And they're like, oh, Lee, I've
I've loved your posts. They're your biggest fan.
You're the biggest post. I want to do business with you, or you should meet my colleague, blah, 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 who I think would love your stuff. And like, it does happen.
Yeah.
You know, and there's the old saying, you know, you create your own luck.
Yeah.
Is that lucky people always tend to be the people who work the hardest too.
Yeah. It's true. It's very true.
You know?
Yeah.
Go out there, do the work. Don't do it. Begin with the end in mind. Don't think that it's not about vanity. It's not about likes, comments, all that stuff. It's about, can you help people? And the people you help, are those the people that you want to attract for your life, for your business, for your friendships, for all that stuff.
Focus on value is what I hear. Get out of your own way. Right. So put aside, I mean, you're using the word vanity. It's putting aside your ego, which really means you're going to have to step through that fear of looking bad, that fear of judgment, because your why is more important. And that why can be many different things, but the value you offer is aligned, going back to that alignment word, is aligned with your why. And that will then help you show up on social media the way you need to, because we are in that age. I'm constantly reminded that if you are an entrepreneur now, you got to be online. You got to be doing content somehow, some way. Doesn't mean you necessarily need to be on it every day. It definitely helps more with, you know, building funnels and visibility and people getting to know who you are. But that also leads to consistency. So, which is one of my challenges, because I'm really focused on value. But as a recovering perfectionist, that value to me sometimes comes across as like it has to be perfect value. Yeah. And it's a hard thing for me to sometimes balance, where some of the, you know, stuff that I'm reading and you know, consuming, even through audiobooks, is about the value you offer. Sometimes is not like 10 out of 10 value for you at that time. Yeah. Maybe it's something that I put out that's maybe, hey, you know, this is an interesting perspective, or it's a nice tool. Maybe I think of it as like, it's not my greatest work, but how it lands for somebody else can be a 10 out of 10. Right. And so it reminds me about perceived value, which means that the value you intend something to be is not always going to be the value that it's perceived to be in both directions. Right. And so I think that's your why is so important, focusing on consistency, adding value, but not getting hung up on needing to know whether it's going to be valuable or not. You just get out there, right? If you really believe in your product, your service, yourself, then, you know, people will feel that and follow. 100%. Speaking of following, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on the socials at Jeff Swan 18. So that's on LinkedIn, Twitter, or X, Instagram, what have you. So yeah, find me at Jeff Swan 18, and you'll find me on any of their. I do prefer LinkedIn though. That's where I post every day. The others I tend to be a little more sporadic. So if you really want my best stuff, go there
on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jeff, for joining us today. And again, I there were so many conversations that we've had in between takes before this, that there's still more to cover.
Yes.
And so we'll definitely do this again soon so we can keep things going.
Absolutely. Always happy to share. And thank you again for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. Take care.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained valuable insights to elevate your life and business.
If you found value in our conversation, spread the love. Share this episode with family and friends, and let's grow this supportive community together.
And don't forget to like and follow us so we can reach more amazing people just like you.
Until next time, remember, let's not sugarcoat it. Keep it real, raw, and unfiltered.